Do you remember? The smell of burning coal in the fireplaces, the sound of steam trains cutting through the morning mist, the buzz of queues in stores still marked by rationing cards? It was 1950s Britain, a decade of rebuilding and resilience, where the wars past coexisted with the first signs of modernity. A world captured in vivid colors by Kodachrome film, now revealed in images that transport us to an almost forgotten era. 50s Britain was a country undergoing quiet transformation. The scars of World War II were still visible, ruins of bombed buildings, gardens replaced by subsistence plots, and streets where children played under the watchful eyes of neighbors who had become family. But at the same time, there was cautious optimism. The factories roared again, producing no longer weapons, but goods for a nation eager to rebuild. In cities like Manchester and Birmingham, workers in greasy overalls emerged from double shifts, proud of their contributions to an industry that was still the backbone of the country. The marks of the war were everywhere. In London, areas like Stepney and Poplar still displayed craters where homes once stood. In Coventry, the medieval cathedral destroyed by bombing reminded people of the fragility of peace. Even so, life went on. In rural villages, women harvested potatoes in fields that had once been flower gardens, while men repaired roofs with pieces of wood salvaged from rubble. In the cities, rationing continued until 1954. Housewives exchanged recipes to turn turnips and cabbages into pies, and children collected cricket cards as a symbol of normality. Even the pubs, often without enough beer, became centers of solidarity. It was common to hear, "Share what you have, not what you want." On the streets, the day started early. Workers walked in groups, their boots echoing on uneven sidewalks. In factories like Rover in Birmingham, the noise of machines competed with the sound of radios playing news about Queen Elizabeth II's coronation, 1953. Meanwhile, in Liverpool's docks, dockworkers carried sacks of coal, dirty and proud, knowing their work kept the country warm. In the villages, life was marked by rituals. Weekly fairs sold live chickens and fresh eggs, while flea markets offered broken watches and old books. Even the steam trains, which crisscrossed the country on journeys that lasted hours, were part of the magic. Families crowded into carriages to spend days at the seaside, where children built sandcastles while parents read yellowed newspapers. David Granik, a modest man born in Stepney in 1912, began photographing in the 1950s. He was not a professional, but his precision was remarkable. Each image had a date and location. Whitechapel Road, 1965, Spitalfields Market, 1973. As if he knew that time was running out. Granik used Kodachrome, an expensive and complicated film, but one that preserved colors like no other. In his photos, a woman sweeps the sidewalk in front of a house with broken windows, still unrepaired since the bombings. In another, children play in a muddy street, their smiles contrasting with the weathered facades. Chris Dawley Brown, who studied his work, observes, Granik didn't just document places. He captured the soul of a community struggling to survive. 1950s, Britain was a country of stark contrasts. While London began to erect modern concrete buildings, villages like Stow-on-the-Wold still held medieval fairs, with farmers selling cheese and wool as they had for centuries. In the north, in Yorkshire, coal mines still employed thousands, while in the south, seaside resorts like Brighton already boasted of a bright future with neon signs. Even fashion reflected this duality. In the cities, women wore homemade cotton dresses, while the first rebellious youths, influenced by James Dean and Elvis Presley, defied norms with ripped jeans and leather jackets. In schools, rigid uniforms contrasted with long hair that was beginning to appear. Granik's work remained forgotten until 2017, when Chris Dawley Brown discovered his photos in the Tower Hamlets archives. I was breathless, says Dorley Brown. Those images were a window into a world I had only known through stories. Today, East End London is unrecognizable. Skyscrapers have replaced factories, and luxury stores occupy the spaces once filled by markets. But Granik's photos remind us of what was lost and what can still be saved. As Dorley Brown wrote, "These images are more than historical records. They are witnesses to an era when community was the only wealth that mattered." 1950s. Britain was not a paradise. It was a place of struggle, poverty, and uncertainties, but it was also a place where neighbors became family, where a cup of tea was shared even when there was no sugar, and where hope emerged in small things. A flower growing in a bombed garden, a child's smile on a pothole-filled street. As we look at these images, we are reminded that the true history lies not in monuments, but in the streets, the homes, and the anonymous faces that built the future. David Granik gave us a gift, the chance to see the past not as a museum, but as a mirror, where we can see our own humanity with all its struggles and beauties.